In this video, we're going to take a quick look at how we'd find and review responses to a form that you've created and shared with others. So we have a quick example form that I've created for the purposes of a demonstration here, which would just be the sort of thing we might use to gather data from parents or to allow parents to make queries. And I want to just quickly mention a few things in relation to the settings that we'd want to consider before actually sharing. So we'll just have a quick look in there. First of all, this is not a quiz. This is just a form for gathering information. I have ticked that I do want it to collect email addresses though, because that's important if I was going to reply to somebody. I've made sure that response editing is not on, so it can't be changed after people have submitted the responses. So that means that when I review them, they're not going to change later on. I'm not going to make it require a sign in Sterling Council because I want to make sure that people who are not Sterling Council employees are able to actually access the form. And I'm not going to limit it to one response because I want to complete this form a few times myself, just for the purposes of this demonstration. In your case, you might limit that to a single response per person. There are a range of other options here that you can see. We'll not go into them because I think most of them are fairly self-explanatory. So we'll just come back and have a wee look to start with here, our questions. Now, to begin with, along here, you'll see that we have a responses tab and there's currently no number here, which indicates that there is no response. If we go to responses, we'll see there are no responses. So if you're just creating a form and you want to see how those responses are going to look to you to make sure that the data you get is easy to interpret, one of the things you can actually do is use the preview button here and just quickly fill in the form yourself. Now, I'll just my Sterling Schools one. And we'll just quickly fill this out. And submit the form. So although I was looking at it as a preview, me completing the form actually does get recorded. And if we go back to the tab here, we can see that now in our responses tab, it shows that we have one response to our form. And if we look at this, it will show us a summary of those responses. So we can see who has responded because it's got the email address recorded there. And it will then create some graphs and charts and so on relating to any of the data that's been completed in the form. Now, obviously, because there's only one response at the moment, that doesn't look terribly interesting. And you'll see it displays really, depending on the question type, the information that's been responded or that people have responded with in quite a user-friendly manner. So the other thing to bear in mind is that we could look at that by individual question or by individual response. Now, I'm going to pause this tutorial for a moment while I go and complete this form a few times, just so we can see how it would look with a couple of different responses in it. So I've just completed the form itself a few times, and you'll see that now the responses show that we have 6 responses. So that will always be live. As soon as you start seeing responses come in, that number will automatically update. And we're going to have a look here. We can see the email address list is all the same for obvious reasons. And it's changed the pie charts here to indicate the quantities of responses here. And if you hover over them, you'll see that it gives you a breakdown. So you can tell how many that particular section of the pie refers to. And again, we've got some other graphs and charts that are broken down, and then the individual responses that are listed to the open response field question. And if we go back up here, we can look at specific questions. So for example, if we wanted to just look at the queries specifically, we can just look at that individually, see them all together in one place. Or if we wanted to look at the query from a specific individual, for example, we could look at the 5th query that was left. That will show you specifically that person's response. So it's really easy to go in there and actually find the information that somebody has sent you. You'll see at the top here that we have an option to print those responses, so we can print them out on paper if we needed to. And if we wanted to, we can delete a response. Say, for example, somebody's evidently completed the form twice, or we've attended to the query and we want to remove that response now. You'll also note that we can turn off accepting responses when we no longer want them. And there are a few other options that we'll get into in some other videos. So last wee thing I was going to point out as well, it can be quite handy when you look at the summary. If there's a chart and you want to share that with other people, you'll notice that you can actually copy that chart to clipboard, and that will then allow you to paste it elsewhere. So hopefully now you understand how you would go about finding and reviewing the responses to any forms that you have shared with others. And if you've got any questions, obviously you can just drop us a line.